Hello, fellow traditionalists. How you guys doing? This is Mike Levitt and the man, the legend, Joey, Dr. Joey Wolverton. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Finally able to do another podcast for the Return to Tradition. It's been a
Yep.
hot minute, as we say. It's been a hot minute,
It's been
and
hotter here. I'll tell you that.
yeah, dang, dude. I'm reading in my news feed about it's the third day in a row above 114 in Phoenix. I'm like, Dad, I
Yeah.
got out while the getting was good, baby.
No bueno. Yes, you certainly did. You
But it's
certainly
finna be
did.
90. Hey, but I'm gonna tell you this: it's finna be tomorrow, 97 with 85% humidity here. So
Wow.
I'm gonna be sitting around just stewing in my own
I
gravy
was
at that.
gonna say, that's gonna be, yeah. You
Yeah.
got sauna conditions, man.
Oh, dude, it's gonna be.
We've got
Yeah,
oven. You've
sauna.
got sauna.
Yeah, you guys got the oven, but I think I prefer the sauna.
There's
Because 114, dude. I remember when I moved to Arizona in whatever it was, like 2013 or 14. I don't remember. But it was July, and I remember the day it was 114 degrees, and I was like, "You have got to be kidding me!"
yeah,
I always thought people were exaggerating. I really did. I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
people
No,
like to say it's really, really hot. It's like, no, it really, really
then
is.
you experience it, and you're like, "Whoa! I didn't think this was this
Whoa.
was. I didn't think this could happen on planet Earth."
Like I try to sit outside. I remember last year trying to sit outside and like get a little tan and do my work outside. Literally 3 minutes in, and the computer's like, "Yeah, we're shutting down. It's too
Right,
hot." It's like we're not.
right.
You can stay out if you want, but we're
Well,
shutting down.
I was on a Zoom call with you recently, where all of a sudden, oh yes, things got a little toasty, and my phone decided to
Oh,
shut her
that's right.
down.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So no matter how good your air conditioning is, at some point those electronics will fail under.
Yeah. You got to have them like stuck to the vent
Yeah,
practically.
you do.
It's like I listened to that Nate Bargatze's podcast. I don't know if you watch his podcast or listen to it, but
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
one of the guys was talking about how he went to Phoenix to do a club date, and he had an Airbnb, and he left his wallet on the dashboard. And I'm like, what
Oh
were first of all, it's too hot. Second of all, that glass is a magnifying glass.
yeah.
And he's like, he came out, his wallet was stuck to the thing, and all his credit cards had melted into like wavy pieces. It reminded me of planes, trains, and automobiles. Remember where he has like, do you take Diners Club? And he's got like this charred chunk of credit card. Yeah. I'm like,
Oh
you kind of ask for that, man. If you're in Phoenix and you're
yeah.
putting your wallet on the
Don't
dashboard,
yeah.
and then yeah, I'm gonna go inside and get something to eat. I'll
Right.
be out.
I'm surprised there wasn't a burn hole in the leather.
Well, if it had been in Memphis, it'd have been a broken window, and that wallet would be gone.
Right. The thieves here know better. They know that it's gonna
Yeah,
think all they're gonna get is melted trash.
exactly. They're like, yeah, yeah.
Oh, they're
Telling you, man. Here, I'm
uh,
living out in the country now, but living in, still living. I'm not even living in the county with Memphis anymore. I live in Fayette County, but dude, every morning it's like 3 people shot last night. It's like got a dude out on I-240 on what we call the loop out
yeah.
there, just shooting people. Like, hey, let's take some shots at folks. And of course, everybody's first thing, we got to get rid of the guns. I'm like,
Right.
man, we got to get rid of the evil.
Yeah. No, that's right.
Because
Because
I got all kinds of guns over here. Ain't none of them ever shot anybody.
yep, yep. And well, we do it's those kind of events that encourage bad people to take away our liberties.
Yeah.
It's that's the exact thing that they're looking for. No, they're always looking for that. By the way, speaking of that, man, why not? We got to announce. You got to, speaking of the of gun rights, Second Amendment, all these wonderful things. You've got a new show coming out, don't you?
Well, I do. I don't know details yet, but I am going to be the host of a Second Amendment radio show, a pro Second Amendment radio show. Don't know. I don't even, I'm the host, but I know very little other than I'm just the trained monkey who sits behind the microphone going, yeah, and the founding fathers said, and I'm just that guy. So I don't know enough. Next, when we do the show next week, I will have all the details,
Well, that's going to be cool. So
but I will have,
we'll announce it when the time is right.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, yes, you're right though. There is a pro Second Amendment, and it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be some hardcore, deep dive, serious stuff. Not any of this, it's not gonna be just your regular old. I take it from a cold dead finger.
Right.
Anybody, you can see that anywhere. You know, we're gonna
Yeah.
get serious about the stuff. We're gonna be. This is not. If you think the NRA is pro Second Amendment, you don't have any idea about the Second Amendment. The NRA is not pro Second Amendment. The NRA is pro NRA.
Right.
And
Right. And
so this show is going to feature people that are legit warriors, legit fighting to protect the Second Amendment. They, put their money where their mouth is. They've been, they lawsuit after law. They just defeated the, ATF, with the whole bump stock thing.
yep.
So the people that were behind that, I'm, fingers crossed, going to be interviewing them about that experience. And so, yeah, be any of you guys in Tennessee that are watching, by the way, August, what is it, 17th and 18th, I think, is the big Gun Owners of America conference in Knoxville. Man, you should go. If you got a chance, you should go. There are going to be some killer speakers there. There are going to be all kinds of booths and stuff. There's even going to be a trip to the range
That's
for
awesome.
people. Yeah, man, there's going to be a trip to the shooting range for people that want to do that. They got a separate little thing for kids, a little like kids academy about the Second Amendment and gun ownership and all kinds of cool stuff. So that's like August 17th and 18th, I think, at the Knoxville Convention Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm gonna be there, so come say
Hey,
what up.
go say hello.
Yeah,
I think um the yeah, and those kind of organizations are so important. And just speaking out on gun rights, I think is so important. There's a good case to be made that the most important right that we have is the Second Amendment because it protects all the other ones.
I mean,
Um,
at the end of the day, right? And I'm going to be
yeah.
telling the story of my experience at the United Nations, which now, gosh, has been what 11 years ago. Seems like 100 years ago. But speaking, I appeared at their conference on the arms trade treaty, and people have forgotten about. People think about domestic threats to the Second Amendment, dude. The international threat through through the United Nations and through treaties that the Senate, dude. If we get two senators swapping, the other way, if the composition of the Senate swings just a little tiny bit Democratic, then they will ratify that arms trade treaty. And I'll save it for when the show starts, but and for next week I'll talk about it on here. But
Yeah.
the United Nations, the plans that we've already signed it, but the Senate has to ratify it. Now, of course, a treaty does not become binding if it violates the Constitution, and this obviously violates the Constitution. But that being said, it's going to be treated as if it were the law.
And that's the problem. Like,
And that's the problem. And the problem is that there are some, and like I said, we'll talk about it next week, but there are some things, and we signed it. I literally sat right behind Tom Countryman, who was the ambassador, to the United States ambassador to the United Nations, and he right there voted yes. We signed off on it, and it's terrifying. Some of the
wow.
stuff in that people just don't remember. And the John Birch Society that I am their constitutional scholar now. They're like, why don't you go back, package up that stuff, put a hook on it to say, it's not just domestic threats to the to the right to, not to the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms.
Yeah.
And so to repackage some of that stuff, because some of the articles in there give regional United Nations armed forces the right to assist domestic law enforcement in enforcing gun regulations, and
Wow. And if you think it's bad, your local police colluding with the FBI and the ATF to take away your rights, imagine, NATO getting involved.
colluding with, exactly. There you go, and that's exactly what
Gosh,
we're talking about. We're talking
that's
about NATO. We're talking about the what's the one, the Caribbean one. There's
yeah,
several. That CETO, the United States belongs to several of these UN regional organizations that, according to
NAFTA.
articles
I
in
think
this
that's something different,
treaty.
but that's a but
Yeah. So anyway, but
and I think it's interesting. Um, the again, and I think you said something that's really important. They're going to treat it as law.
yeah,
It,
yeah,
it
it won't be
it doesn't matter what's written on a piece of paper or what's
right.
signed. What matters is what's enforced and what we will put up with.
Right, and we've shown we'll pretty much put
Put
up
up
with
with
anything.
right.
Yeah,
And I think that's why our podcast, this Return to Tradition podcast, is so important because it's a
dude.
great way to bring together, not just like-minded people, but also hopefully, stretch our reach and bring people into the fold and help them realize what the traditions, the stories, the principles that,
Yeah.
that, you know, a law is not a law if it's not a law.
Yeah, I mean, a law, that's a word with a definition, and it's something that we agree to obey, but among equals, another man only gets a right to bind my behavior according to the boundaries of that authority that I've set for him.
Right.
And if he exceeds those boundaries, that thing's not a law. It's just it's null, void, and no effect, right? That's what it should be. But we treat it today like it's law, and so that's the scary thing. And I think this is the thing, Mike, that kind of gets me. And this is going to sound envious, and I hand to heaven promise it's not envious. But when I think about our stuff, I think about our podcast, your solo podcast, my solo podcast. I'm like, there should be a lot more attention given to them than there is. I understand that it's not spicy or sexy like Joe Rogan or a Tucker Carlson, because we're not just going to throw conversation grenades to get people's attention,
Right.
right? We're not just going to say the right words to get the attention and get the views and get talked about. But if you are sincere, because those people are never going to move the needle. They're not, because if you see Joe Rogan, if you see Tucker Carlson, you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to be said. And I like Joe Rogan. I like Tucker Carlson, and I like Russell Brand. I like this stuff. I watch them myself, but I don't share them because I reckon that this is more, and I hate to say it, more entertainment than education. You're not going to hear anything on Tucker Carlson or Russell Brand or Joe Rogan that you didn't already know, really.
Right.
You might hear parts of a story that you didn't know or something like that, but you're not going to hear anything that you're like, whoa, I really learned something
Right.
there.
It's going to reinforce what you already
Yeah,
believe.
and which is fine. But on this podcast, you're like today, we're going to talk. I guarantee you that at least one of these stories, it will be everybody who listens to this podcast or watches one of these people no one's ever heard of. At least one. Now, some of them may have heard of one or the other, but to say that you've heard of all three, I would be really doubtful.
Yep. And
But
then
there are people that deserve, and in this case, our sisters in liberty, that deserve to have their stories told, that do not have their stories told, not because they're women. So don't at me with your feminist nonsense. It's not
right.
because their stories aren't not told because they're women. Their stories are not told because they are freedom fighters and they stood up against tyranny.
That's right.
And we can't have that being told as being part of our heritage, right? Our political patrimony can't include stories of regular people or even noble people standing up against tyrannical authority. We need more stories about people, obeying the law and being heroes, rather than
Yeah.
saying, "Guess what? I'm liable to die because I'm standing up to this tyrant. But guess what? I'm going to die on a trajectory toward heaven.
And you know what, that makes me, of course, think of something you and I have just read recently, Cato's letter number 93, where it talks about the
Mm.
definition of a hero. What is a hero? What is a heroine? What do these great men and women do that's different than what somebody who just obeys and complies
And something we
does?
read just the other day, the Hesiod, Works and Days, where he talks about what is this race of heroes, this demigods,
Right.
right? What is the difference between and like you say, Cato's letter number 93. Dude, that letter's like 4 pages long. You got people who are going to sit down and give 700 pages of, fill in the blank, Harry Potter or Brandon Sanderson or I don't know, any of those things. But you
Right.
ask them to read 4 or 5 pages of Cato's letters that could literally change the future, and they're like, "Nah."
Yeah. I will say the problem with reading Cato's letters, I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but the problem is you're going to sit there and you're going to be blown away by one sentence. This is me. I'm going to be blown away by one sentence and sit there just staring at that sentence, thinking about it for like 5 minutes
Oh,
before I
yeah.
move on to the next one. Cause I'm just like, that was so good. And I'll underline it. And then I'll go to the next one. I'm like, what? That just totally blew me away again. And I'll underline it. And then I'm like, how, man, it's brilliant, but it's because they're talking about timeless ideals that were taught to them, that have been taught in Western society, throughout all of
Right.
good society forever, that we've forgotten.
And that we don't ever hear about today. So why don't we light that candle then, man?
Let's do it, man. Okay, so last time you saw us in our last episode, we were talking about the Three
Allow
Sisters of
me to
Liberty.
reintroduce myself.
Boo boo. But we had we talked about some amazing sisters from biblical times, from the Bible, and those were so powerful. And we're going to talk about, I hate to say, a more secular version of this, because liberty is a spiritual thing. I mean, it's
Oh, yeah,
liberty.
yeah.
Liberty is, there's no difference. God loves liberty, period. um
God gave his only begotten son for the concept of you being able to choose,
yeah.
period.
Yep.
Jesus hung on the cross so that you could have the agency to choose between right and wrong.
Amen. And so we're going to talk about three more sisters that stood up to that challenge. And so who do we want to start with? You want to start with um
You want to start with
Herodotus?
what's that?
You want to start with our Roman?
The Hortensia? Yeah, we can start
Yeah,
with
Hortensia.
Hortensia. How about that? Let me get over here to Hortensia. All right, so here's the deal. In 42 BC, we've got the triumvirate of Lepidus, Mark Antony, and Caesar Augustus, aka Octavian. We got them ruling the Roman Empire. The Republic is dead. Caesar is dead. Mark Antony, Octavian, who will become eventually Augustus, the divine one, uh, and then Lepidus. And now these guys are all about two things: warfare and welfare. We want to expand the empire, and we want to keep the people of Rome and the Roman Empire. We want to keep them quiet. So we're going to expand warfare and welfare, which should sound very familiar.
And come on, do I have to say this? Can we liken these stories unto ourselves? Think
That it
about
might be
this.
for our profit and learning. I mean,
Exactly.
it's exactly, and we say that, but Plutarch, we quote
Right.
scripture saying that, but Plutarch, go read his biography of Timoli, and he starts out by saying, yeah, I was fixing to write these, for just, for history's sake. And then I realized that these are examples. These are teaching me good things to do and bad things not to do. So he's like, you have to pay attention to learn from these things. And so you got Lepidus, Mark Antony, and Octavian, and they're like, all right, and that's called the triumvirate, typically called the second triumvirate, because the first one was Crassus, Julius Caesar, and Pompey Magnus, Pompey the Great. So the second triumvirate, and they're like, what are we gonna do? how are we gonna get this money that we need to have a huge army and keep the welfare state going so the people are uh
Are placid and won't
are
come after
placid. Oh,
you.
perfect word, right? Are lulled into inactivity. So they come up, my lord, I have a cunning plan, right? Which is what was his name on Blackadder? What was his name? I forgot his name all of a sudden. My lord, I have a cunning plan. I can't even remember what his name was on the show. Anyway, Blackadder. If you know Blackadder, drop a comment, prove that you're cool. All right. So they come up with a plan. We are going to tax people. We are going to tax them real bad. And so they had the idea of coming up. So they got all these tax. They got all their stuff together. We got this tax. We got that tax. We got this coming in from here and that coming in from there. And we are 200 million drachmas short. Now, you cannot print gold, so, and they were still using specie, they were still using metal as money. So, they couldn't go out and be like, hey, Federal Reservicus, will you please print us some drachmas? They'd be like, how
Can,
do you print gold, man? And he'd be
can you
like,
add a
I
few
don't know.
more, a few more zeros to my
We
tablet?
need 200. Yeah. Can you send some? No. So they couldn't do that. So the triumvirs, which literally in Latin means three men, the three guys, they come up with a cunning plan to come up with this 200 million drachma shortfall for their warfare slash welfare. And they say, this, I'm going to read to you straight from a man, Appian, right? Appian, who wrote the history of Rome. And look, on this podcast, you get the real deal Holyfield. All right, look at this. We reading from Appian, man. We are not like other podcasts that are going to be like, and in Roman history, you read of. No,
No,
this is Roman history that Joe even has a bookmark. This is stuff we read,
you're
man.
getting
Look at this.
99
This
proof
stuff's toe
history.
up. This stuff toe up. We read our stuff, man. Come on.
Oh, you
All
know it.
right. We have our look at that. Look right there. See, this is
Boom,
legit. Look,
boom.
look at that. Real deal Holyfield. Okay. So Appian tells the story. I'm gonna read it from Appian and just follow along with the story. I'm just gonna read you as Appian because isn't that the best way? We can talk about it after I read it. But so all you need to know, they're making these preparations for war, preparations for welfare, and they're 200 million drachmas short. And the Federal Reservicus has decided not to do quantitative easicus in Rome. So here we go from Appian. The triumvirs addressed the people on this subject and published an edict requiring 1,400, think about that number, of the richest women to make a valuation of their property and to furnish for the service of the war such portion as the triumvirs should require from each. And it was okay, so you understand that. So basically, let's take 1,400 of the richest women in Rome. Now, what's the problem? You'll see in a minute, but the richest women in Rome, they're like, that's cool, but we are not allowed a say in government. That's
Right.
their thing, right? This
But
is
you think there's a reason they picked?
right. They're like, yeah, we're gonna make women pay because they will just do what we say. And normally, and that's a good thing, right? But not in this case, not when you've got tyrants ruling over you. So they say, take these 14, let's count out the 1,400 richest women. Let's have them turn in a list of their property, and then we'll decide how much to tax each one of them to make up for the 200 million drachmas that we're short for our war in Spain and for our welfare programs. I mean, if you don't have eyes to see, I don't know how else I could make, I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
could we make this more, like applicable to our own day? I don't think so. And again, guys, the point is, I'm reading this right from the annals of Roman history. This is not me trying to spin it. If anyone's spinning it, it's Appian.
Hey, Joey, I got a better idea.
Yeah.
How about if we? I mean, we got this war going on in Europe, in Ukraine, Russia. There's stuff going on. I,
Yeah.
we can't tax.
Israel.
It'd be yeah, Israel. We can't tax women. I mean, that'd be kind of discriminatory. I'll tell you what. Why don't we tax our rich children or children to come, or they're because they're not going to vote. I mean, what are they going to say?
This is
Come
a
on,
good point. It ain't like your grandkids can vote.
right? Not saying, just
But
saying.
we are fortunate to have a Federal Reservicus,
That's true.
and we get quantitative easicus that can pump a bunch of drachmas into our economy. And it ain't that stuff costs more, it's that your money's worth less. Come on
Right?
now.
Yep.
Do the math, people. All right, so 1,400, bring them in. Send out an edict. They send out an edict. Take these 1,400 women, tell them, make a list of your property, and then we'll tax it, right? It was further provided. Now, listen, I guess so. Oh, I get the Holy Ghost when I start talking about this stuff. All my, all my circuit preacher ancestors are like, preach, preach. So it says, it was provided further in this edict of the triumvirs that if any should conceal their property or make a false valuation, they should be fined.
Of course. Of course.
I mean,
Of course. April 15th is coming quicker than you think.
if maybe this was April, we should do some deep diving, see if this was on April 15th.
Yeah, we should.
If it was, that'd be so, if it were, that'd be so crazy. But the point is, guys, when you fill out your little form for the empire, and I wish we had just triumvirs. We've got thousands of veers, right?
Mhm.
Millimveers, right? Probably
Yep.
even more than that. But do you understand? This is exactly what an Apian's going to make a point, and I'm going to get to it, I promise you. But the point, keep up with us, man. Keep up with us. Find the richest people, make them give us a list of their income, of their property. We are going to set a tax on that. They are going to have to fill out a form. If they leave something off the form, or if they don't, if they make a false valuation, we will fine them. This is our life today.
Yep.
And don't give me history repeats itself. I want to slap the taste out of people's mouth when they say that. History is not a thing, y'all. History is inert. History can't act. If history repeats itself, that's just the sort of euphemistic way of saying people make the same stupid mistakes. And we do, because you are going to go straight through high school history and college history and never read a word of Apian. Never.
Fact.
Never.
Hashtag fact.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
So if they make a false valuation, they'll fine. And anybody who informs on those 1,400 women for making a false valuation or trying to conceal their property, we will reward them.
Man. Carrot and
So,
stick, Joey. Carrot and stick.
I mean, are you kidding me, man?
Wow.
Call the EPA and tell
Uh-huh.
them that Mike is digging a pond in his backyard, and within a month, Mike will be getting $40,000 fine.
Right. And we may kick you back at 5,000 of that, just
You may win. You may, but you also, it might be a way for us, you know, to get the old paint on the door. You know what I'm saying? Like we've talked about before.
Yep.
It might
Exactly.
be a way to say, hey, he's a loyalist. We'll
He is
make
a
him one of the
loyal.
last.
That's
All
right.
right. So what do these women do? These 1,400 rich women, they do. I think the story of Hortensia, man, and Hortensia, let her name be said. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Hortensia. All right, daughter of Quintus
Hortensia.
Hortensius. Yeah, Hortensius. So they did that a lot back in the day, man. If your dad like Joseph, if you had a daughter, you call her Josephine,
Right.
right? Like your name is Michael, you'd have Michaela or something. I don't know. Michaelina. I don't know. So Hortensia was the
Michelle,
daughter of,
Micheline,
yeah, something
Micheline.
like that. Michaela. Isn't Michaela like a name? I don't know.
Michaela's a name.
Yeah. So Hortensia,
Michaela.
daughter. So the women decide, guess what we're going to do? We're going to talk to, as Apian describes it, the women resolved to beseech the women folk of the triumvirs. So these 1,400 rich women said, yeah, so those three men in charge, they have wives, sisters, mothers. We finna talk to them and say, you need to get your men in line.
Right.
So they go. With the sister of Octavian and the mother of Antony, they did not fail. So they went to Antony and they went to Octavian. So the Mark Antony mom, they went to her. Mrs. Antony, you know, she's like, yes, yeah. Did you hear what your son's doing? No, what's he doing? He's taxing us. You better get your butt in here, young man. And then they went to who was it? They went to sister Octavian's sister, who also, if you've ever watched the HBO series Rome, which I would encourage, but again, be careful because it's going to show some of the adult activity.
Right.
Be careful, be prepared to fast forward at times. But Octavian's sister plays a central role in that miniseries. So they go and the sister of Octavian and the mother of Antony are like, yeah, you're right. That's wrong for them to do. But they were repulsed from the doors of Fulvia, the wife of Antony, whose rudeness they could scarce endure. I'm just going to say Dr. Jill Biden, paging fake Dr. Jill Biden, whose
Yeah.
rudeness they could scarce endure, paging fake Dr. Biden.
But
I mean, is there a doctor in the house? Like, is there a doctor on the plane? And there's someone, and Joe Biden, people are like, no, 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 a real doctor, sweetheart. You just sit down and go get me coffee or tea, sweetheart. Don't you? You just
yeah.
calm down and make me
Right.
a sandwich.
I
You ain't
think
a
Joe's
doctor.
wandering off. Go
Come on,
go
you
go.
go do some laundry. Come on now. We're talking about a doctor. It's got to be a man. Let's not be funny. Mike sitting back there is like, I do not ratify what he is saying.
Oh,
His
dude, I ratify every word.
his misogyny has gone too far this time.
I'm, I'm, pro-
I tell you, it's not misogyny,
I'm just waiting for
man.
my sandwich.
I'm just waiting for my sandwich to be delivered. All right, so they go and so Fulvia hashtag Joe Biden says no, they're doing the right. So then they forced. Okay, so this now we're getting good. Now the story's getting good. They go to the women. Two of the three, they're like, yeah, I got you, but they got some of the women that are like, no, I don't care. As long as my husband's in charge, I'm not fixing to get, I don't have to wear a mask if I'm Joe Biden's wife. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm not wearing a mask if I'm Fauci's wife. I don't care. Right. So they could not endure her rudeness. So then these women, the 40, Hortensia at the charge, they forced their way to the tribunal of the triumvirs in the forum. They're like, nope, then I guess we're going to go right into the White House, right into the Capitol building. Guess we're going to have to go to the Capitol building and handle the business.
All right,
So
got
they
it.
go in there. The people and the guards divide to let them pass. Now,
They
guys,
knew it was best.
here we take a sharp uh, division, a fork in the road, if you will, a forkus in the roadicus, because our police and people would be like, you have to obey the law like everyone else. It's your it's the price you pay for civilization. How are you going to get your roads and your army? Today, the police and the people
In
would
fact,
be
we're going
like,
to take a shot at you
we're going to
just to
have
prove a
committee
point.
meetings and put you on trial.
Yeah.
Hortensia would have been on trial for a J6 action.
Yep.
But you read them doing it and they're like, oh, good. But that's why you're never going to hear this story.
That's right.
So they bust in there to the trial. The people in the guards are like, look, I know what's right and I'm going to let them in for two reasons. Number one, they're right. Number two, we used to respect our women. We don't respect our women anymore. We don't. We don't respect them. We don't treat them like goddesses, right? We're wink wink nudge, nudge. We like the equality movement because it means that I'm just treating you like I would treat a man. But back in the day, they moved to the side. 1,400 noble women come into the forum. Yeah, move to the side. There, through the mouth of Hortensia, whom they had elected to speak because her dad was a famous orator, famous lawyer, famous speaker. She inherited her dad's talent. They chose Hortensia to speak, and she spake as follows. Allow me to read. No, she didn't say that. She said, as befitted women of our rank addressing a petition to you, we had recourse to the ladies of your households. But having been treated as did not befit us at the hands of Fulvia, we have been driven here to the forum. Now, do you understand what she's saying?
Yeah, we have been.
We had to do. We were
Yeah, our hand
forced.
was forced to be here. Yep,
You have already deprived us. Oh, Joey. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's finna. Oh no. Because remember, there's a reason they're 200 million drachmas short: warfare and welfare. And the warfare, you just got to have them. Like like we know, men 18 to 26, you finna be drafted to go die in Kiev.
that's right.
So
For
she
freedom,
says, you
right?
have
For
all.
democracy.
Yeah, you gotta. It's right. You gotta give your life for democracy or oligarchy or plutocracy, or just go give your life and shut up. She
I
says,
mean,
you have all speaking to the leaders, these three men. Now, can you imagine these three guys sitting there and these women bust in, and Hortensia is like, yeah, don't look so surprised. It's your stanky women that drove us here. You have already deprived us. Now, God, please lock in with me for a minute and listen. If you have ears to hear, I hope you hear. You have already deprived us of our fathers, our sons, our husbands, and our brothers. You say they have wronged you. If you take away our property, you reduce us to a condition unbecoming of our birth, our manners, and our sex. If we've done you wrong, as you say our husbands have, prescribe us as you do them. But if we women have not voted any of you public enemies, have not torn down your houses, destroyed your army, or led another against you, if we have not hindered you in obtaining office and honors, why do we share the penalty when we do not share the guilt? Someone uses a gun to kill people, guess what? Everybody's got to give up their guns.
yeah, that's. I mean,
Someone says something bad about someone, well, now no one can say anything about that subject.
right.
You
And
took our husbands, sons, brothers, fathers. You either sent them to war or you accused them of opposing you in the civil war that just passed and you killed them. Okay. Did we do that? Did we vote to deny you these offices that you've taken unconstitutionally unto yourselves? That's the between the lines. That's the subtext, right? That's what she's saying. She's like, you and I both know that you're violating the Constitution in 1,000 different ways.
right, you are here dishonorably. This
Right.
is not your proper place.
And we women, we didn't do anything to stop you from doing this. We didn't have the power, the authority. So but we're going to share the penalty when we did not share the guilt. Why should we pay taxes when we have no part in the honors, the commands, the running of the state for which you contend against each other with such harmful results? I mean, this is what was this? This is 1700 and gosh, what 1800 years before taxation without representation was spoken by Isaac Barry in England before it was spoken by James Otis in America. Why should we pay taxes when we have no part in the honors, the commands, or the running of the state?
Right. And and to me, it really is kind of a touching thing to hear somebody stand up so resolutely and say, you've taken our sons and our husbands. You're expanding the empire at our expense already, and now you want to do this double harm to us by taking, it's funny, we live in such a material world. I'm sure they'd rather have their husbands and their children
Oh,
rather than their wealth.
well, she
And
didn't
yet,
mention the wealth first. She mentioned the family
yep,
first.
yep.
You
And
know, either
so,
you've sent them to war and killed them for absolutely unconstitutional reasons, because war is only defensive according to the Roman Constitution. Second, if you didn't send them to war, they're your political opponents and you're persecuting them. Sound familiar? It's called lawfare.
that's right.
You're not killing them in warfare, so you're going to destroy them. You're going to destroy their property, destroy their reputation through lawfare.
And it's that kind of like clear thinking. Whenever I see any war or I see any kind of political fight, it's the clear thinking that says, wait a sec, we are, you know all that's happening is that we are standing behind one man to prop up another. In other words, you know nobody nobody is helped. None of the regular folk, none of the anybody other than the tyrant himself, um, benefits from propping up a tyrant.
Yeah,
And in the
except the
end,
tyrants' families and,
right?
like
And
you
well,
see Fulvia, like you see with Fulvia, right? She's like,
right, the
"Hey, I'm
guys,
not you may be right, but,
but I like my
mama
status.
needs her Louis Vuittonicus.
Yes, she does.
My Dioricus is not cheap. I must spend many drachmas getting my eyebrows didicus." Mike finna lose it over there. Mike finna
Am I
lose it
red
there.
yet? Oh my
Oh
gosh,
my
that's so,
gosh.
so funny. Oh, you're uh,
Latin.
well, I was gonna say you're pig Latin, but it's more like your cow
It's
Latin is
it's it's
impeccable.
it's it's impeccable. It is impeccable.
Is
I have spent many Euricus studying my Latinicus.
oh, that's what, give it up, give it up. I
Well,
just
so now listen to man, just I ain't finished. We
I
ain't
know
even
you're not
finished.
finished.
We ain't even finished, man. But I mean, this is what
Is there a
I'm
rest of
talking.
the story?
And now the rest of the story. So, why do you do this? And she says, "You answer because this is a time of war." Oh, now listen to this. When have there not been wars? And when have taxes ever been imposed on women who are exempted by their sex among all of mankind? Girls, you think you're going to be saved from having to defend democracy? Nope. Better be getting yourself married, girls. Better be getting yourself some children, because if you're single and 18 to 26, Ukraine or Israel or whatever
They're
country we
calling.
decide next, we need you. We need you to defend democracy.
We got to go bomb Iran, and there's plenty of there's plenty of desks that you can sit up and
There's
and bomb human beings from Las Vegas.
there's so much democracy to be spread
That's right.
with our drones. Drones can only spread so much democracy. We need boots on the ground, even if they're high heel boots, ladies. We need boots on the ground. And I'm being serious, women 18 to 26, who a lot of you are my former students, you will be drafted. Hortensia is here saying women have been exempted from paying taxes and serving in the military because we are women and because all mankind respects us, our sex, this way. First of all, gender isn't even real anymore, right?
There's, yep.
And you will be required, you will be drafted if you do not stop, if you do not assist us in stopping the spread and in stopping, arresting the progress of the evil, as James Madison would say. If you don't help us do that, you will be serving in foreign wars, period. So here you have Hortensia, your foremother. You know, you used to exempt us from such things because we were women, and all mankind exempted us from such treatment because of our sex, she says. These feminists, that's just another word for ignorant. Because guess what? None of those feminist leaders, they're not going to die in the
No.
Ukraine. They're not going to die in Israel. They're not going to die in fill in the blank, in Iran, in China, in Taiwan. They're not going to die. You, little Miss Feminist with your crystals and your influencer account, you are going to. And you can get mad at me all you want. I'd rather you be mad at me and have at least the truth get told than you feel good about everything and end up getting killed. And I did not warn you.
Well,
We, in this
and
case, did
and
not
I
warn
also
you.
want to say, even if you don't die, your soul will die. I mean,
Oh,
ask a male soldier, who's gone through that war, and tell them a bit of their soul hasn't died. And I can't imagine, a tender soul of a woman, having to kill a man or kill a child or kill somebody because they were ordered to,
well,
and then
I
doing it.
can. I can. Hashtag abortion. There's women killing innocent children by the millions in this country every year.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing left to say, man.
Nope.
But Hortensia continues on, and listen to this. Our mothers did once rise superior to their sex and made contributions when you were in danger of losing the whole empire and the city itself through the conflict with the Carthaginians, the Punic Wars, right? Hannibal, the whole thing. We've talked about it. But then, now listen to this, guys. This is how you know who we are, who we really are, all of us. But then they contributed voluntarily. They knew the danger, so they contributed. Do you know why we complain about taxes and stuff? Because we know it's being used for immoral, unconstitutional, and unconscionable acts. Because if we really thought there was some danger to us, we would pony up. It would make sense.
We would
We
pony up
don't,
and we would volunteer.
and we would volunteer. And says, we volunteered not from their landed property, their fields, their dowries, or their houses, without which life is not possible to free women, but from their jewelry and even these, not according to their fixed valuation. Now listen to this. Not according to a fixed value. We just gave freely and fully, not because you fixed some valuation and not under fear of informers or accusers, not through force and violence, but because they were willing to give.
The cause was just.
If tonight there came a decree that from now on income taxes were voluntary, ain't none of you with your I stand with Israel and I stand with Ukraine, ain't none of you paying a damn dollar in income tax tomorrow. And you know that that's true because you know you can be brave by proxy. You know that you can steal my money and you can take the life of some young man, whether it be American, Palestinian, Ukrainian, Russian, don't care. You can be brave by proxy. But what that is just a euphemistic way of saying you can use the government to steal money and life. And that way, you don't have to be the robber and you don't have to be the one pulling the trigger.
And here we have Hortensia, again saying it so clearly, just recognizing, just having the clarity of sight and mind to recognize that the emperor has no clothes, that the emperor is naked, that there's nothing there other than war and welfare, as you said earlier, warfare and welfare, and that's something that we don't need to fund. If they want to
Look,
fund it, use their own damn money.
yeah, if you stand with Israel, go stand your candy ass in Israel.
Right. Go
Go.
join the IDF. They'll take you. I've heard.
They will take you. Go over there and just stand there with a gun and march wherever they tell you to march and shoot some Palestinians because you don't understand the Bible. Go do it.
Right.
Because you can't understand that the UN created the political entity of Israel and God created the spiritual entity of the house of Israel. And you can't understand the difference. But don't steal my money and don't steal the life of some young man who had no other choice and joined the army. And don't at me about that because I grew up in the army. Okay? Don't do that. Be genuinely brave and march yourself over to Ukraine, march yourself over to Israel. Do the thing. Because you don't get the protection like all mankind used to give protection to females. You didn't want that. You wanted all the stuff. Now you got the stuff, but now you're just no. Now you're just stealing from others or killing others. Go do it yourself. Come on. If you really feel this way, and you know you don't, and that's where it comes down to. You know you don't. You know you don't really mean it because if you did, you'd do something about it. You get to have the feeling without any of the sacrifice. Boy, isn't that a great life?
You to look good in front of all the right people.
Yeah.
You know.
You get to be a racist and anti-slavery at the same time. Look at that.
There's a trick.
Hashtag 13th Amendment. Read it for yourselves, people. Read it. All right. So she says, now, and this is the thing. If you go, because we're talking about, how on this show we really read the stuff. Tacitus, right? He's one that tells the story that it used to be that taxes were voluntary when the community, the tribe, the city, when they were under attack, people would voluntarily give to the leaders to protect the city, to protect the community, to protect the tribe. They would do that voluntarily in a time of war. Even the Anglo Saxons, they called it trimotus necessitas. When it was necessary, the people would voluntarily, of their own volition, give part of their property to the king, to the state, in order to protect themselves. And she's about to reveal that here. She says, so they gave freely during the Punic Wars, not because they were scared of informers, not because force or violence, not because, oh, you didn't pay enough tax, we're going to throw you in a cage. We weren't afraid of any of that. What alarm is there now for the empire or the country? Who's attacking the United States?
Right.
Name one country that is attacking the United States. I mean, I would dare say the only country that really could is China.
Right. And And that would be a
And even
quite.
that, they got a hell of a long way to come.
They got a whole. Yes, they do. And they've got you know. Uh, thank God
Also, they'd
for
be killing the
2A.
goose that laid the golden egg.
Right.
I mean, where do you think all
That's the
the
truth. That is the
I
truth.
mean, if you
And they'd
got
also
a
be facing 200 million guns over here, but you
well,
know,
that's true too.
but the fact is, you're right. I mean, it's not going to happen. And
Listen to what she says. Let war with the Gauls or the Parthians come, and we shall not prove ourselves inferior to our mothers in zeal for the common safety. But for civil war, we will never contribute. We will never assist you in destroying each other. We did not contribute to Caesar. We did not contribute to Pompey. We did not contribute to Marius. We did not contribute to Cinna. And all of those who held despotic power in the state.
they're like, well, yeah, that's the point. You didn't contribute, and now you
And
get now
you
you.
say you are reestablishing the republic. Even the despots didn't tax the women, she says. And now you three sit up here and say you're reestablishing the republic and you're taxing the women. That doesn't sound much like the old days to me, Augustus. The men, says Apian, sat silent. The triumvirs were angry, and that the women themselves, would not so much as furnish money. So the triumvirs ordered the lictors to drive them away from the tribunal, which they proceeded to do until cries were raised by the multitude outside, and the lictors desisted, and the triumvirs said they would postpone till the next day consideration of the matter. We don't live in that day. Unfortunately, the lictors would be all too happy to beat you down and to kill you for resisting arrest.
That's right.
And don't get it twisted. Every dime of your taxes is in one way or another being used to fund the forthcoming American Civil War. That's
That's
all there is to it. You can call it Ukraine. You can call it warfare. You can call it welfare. It's all being used to create the divisions that will spark the second Civil War. We will never, we will not be inferior to our mothers in zeal for our common safety, but for civil wars, we will never contribute.
let that be written on everyone's forehead, every mother's forehead, and be preached to every child.
So what happened? They drove them away. They said, we'll try to do it the next day. On the following day, they reduced the number of women from 1,400 to 400 and decreed that all men who possess more than 100,000 drachmas, so what do we gotta do? We gotta tax the rich.
Yep.
And men of all nationalities, without a single exception, should, under the dread of penalty, right? You're going to get put in
Right.
jail,
Right.
and lend them at interest a 50th part of their property and contribute 1 year's income to the expenses of the wars.
And guess what never returned, Joey?
What?
The Roman Republic.
Dun, dun, dun. And I love how she ended her speech. Even these despots, Caesar, Pompey, Marius, Cinna, Sulla, people that you know were tyrants and despots, never taxed the women, but you're doing it and sitting here saying, we're bringing back the
Oh,
old ways.
come on, that so makes me think of the French Revolution. Oh, you kill the king, and then everything gets turned around. You become the same tyrant. Oliver Cromwell, when we were talking about the level, it's the same thing. It meant that lust for power, if it's there to be had, will, and that's the problem. Is any kind of state, any kind of institution is going to gather that power that men will lust for. And man, it's too much of a risk. It, there's so much desire for men to want that, to control other men and to control families and to kill people and to have their stuff and to just dominate that. um uh that the only way to not let that happen is to have these truths, to have these ideas disseminate through everybody, so that we know that once we see it, we can recognize it and we can pull them down immediately.
And how about the power of those women?
Oh, brother.
I mean, that's why
Hortensia.
we're, you know, Hortensia, say your name, say your name,
Oh,
right? Go and do thou
praise Hortensia.
likewise. And that's Appian. Just so you know, the Civil Wars, Book 4. We'll put the link. I know Mike will have to do it because
Yeah,
I don't know how to do
we'll
it.
do it.
But Book 4, and her story begins in number 31,
Okay.
chapter 31. But I'll send the link to Mike. But just so you can see, we do the real stuff here, man.
And here's the thing.
Marked up Hortensia's story for years, man.
It's beautiful and so inspiring. And again, it's funny. Like, you can look online and you can find this stuff, and you can find people who talk about her, but you're never going to find kind of the I think, getting to the heart of the matter than what we just did. I mean,
No,
not to
because
put too
it's
fine a
always.
point
I
on.
mean, if you Google her name, I would reckon that 80% of it is some feminist thing about, it's going to be
Right.
why women are never talked about in history, or look what the girls are doing, stuff like that, as opposed to saying what did she say and why did she say it? And not only that, Mike, but there's virtue in reading it from the source.
Yeah.
This drinking downstream nonsense of going online and Googling Hortensia and being like, Joe and Mike got it wrong because womenfirst.com said that. But you can read Appian. We're going to put a link. You can click on that link and go right to her
Go
story
right
and
there.
read it and see that I didn't change a word of it. But will you? And will that keep you, women 18 to 26, from being drafted to die in some foreign war to spread democracy? It can.
It
And
can.
Appian even says in the book, at the next couple of chapters after that, he's like, look, why I'm not telling you these stories to make you sad. I'm telling you so that maybe you can learn from them and take hope for the future. Demosthenes said that same thing in his speech to the Athenians about Philip. He's like, I'm relating these stories not to make you sad, but to tell you that, hey, we can learn from the past and do better. We can learn. Hortensia, come on, teach your kids about Hortensia and teach them about Hortensia from Appian. Please don't get some rubbish website and be drinking downstream. I don't know about you. Maybe I know in Arizona y'all don't have water. But here I'm gonna tell you, you drink downstream, you know exactly what's fixing to happen.
We drink mud water. What are you talking about?
I know I'm saying well, that's the way it is here too. Hey, we got muddy water, but you don't drink it. You drink water from the spring, man. You don't drink water downstream because you know what's been happening downstream. It's dirty. You're gonna get sick. But you go up and you find water bubbling out of the ground from this aquifer that we have, you can drink that all day, every day for the next 5,000 years.
Right. And these Sisters of Liberty, again, you said it great. They're not Sisters of Liberty because they're sisters. They're Sisters of Liberty because of the liberty part. And every man, boy, uh, girl, woman should. I mean, these are people that you should look up to for what they did, what they said, what they stood for. Regardless of their sex or who they are.
Yeah, precisely. The thing that I take away about it from their the feminine aspect is, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
Right.
There won't be soldiers to be sent to die in Iran or Israel or Ukraine or Taiwan if the mothers of this country refuse to allow the tyrants to take their sons and daughters and sacrifice them.
Exactly.
So the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
Amen.
Shall we move on to the next lady?
I think we need to do that another time. This was
Oh,
amazing. We're like, yeah.
I don't even know how long we've been doing. How long we've been doing it?
We're over an hour, brother.
Whoa!
I know. I
Oh
know.
my goodness! Just when we're finna talk about Boudica,
Boudica. Oh my gosh.
or as
And
we like to call her in Memphis, Boudica.
she's that's good. That's good. I can't come up with a funnier joke than that to
100 years after Hortensia
uh
stood up to the triumvirs, 100 years later.
she's amazing, and her story, you guys are going to be inspired by her
Oh my
story.
goodness,
You're
Boudica.
going you're going to want to stand up and just oh, you
Yeah, you're gonna
yeah.
want it. You're gonna want to seriously. It's one of those things you're gonna want to take. And when I read you directly from the story, you're gonna want to take just like she did, and you're going to take that blue paint, smear it on your face. You want to make that rebel yell that sends chills down the spine of the Roman soldiers.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
you gonna want.
yep.
We took so long on Hortensia, but she deserves it.
She deserves, and by the way, all of these women, all these
Oh yeah.
stories deserve this amount of time and more. Like we're not doing these people justice as it is, and I think we're doing
Oh
better than anybody else. But you
yeah.
can do them justice by reading the links that we put in the description. Just do that.
Hortensia. And next week we'll handle Boudica.
Next week we'll handle Boudica.
100 years later,
Whew. Yeah, man,
we got
that's a, that
Tacitus
that's
telling us about Boudica.
that is a teaser, and we've got some more stories coming up. I'm telling you, we've got incredible
Ooh,
stuff. We've got
dude,
incredible stuff.
we got the Power Brothers of Arizona.
Oh,
Oh my goodness!
so good,
You talk about a story made for us.
right?
Which, by the way, shout out to I don't know his first name, Brother Skinner,
Yes.
Camry's dad, for telling it. He's from down in that area where it happened. He told us the story at Camry and Connor's reception, and we
Yep.
were just like, "Yup, fixing to do a podcast about that
Can you believe that we were sitting there at the reception, and we're both hearing the story for the first
for the
time, just
first
like,
time."
what?
Like,
This
why have
happened,
I never heard that story
right?
before?
And
And
so
I
you,
love that feeling. I love that
me
feeling
too,
of learning stuff like that for the first time.
me too. So we've
And
got
then
the
we got
regulators.
regulators mount up.
Oh,
We got the
so good.
regulators, which I happen to have. One of my grandfathers was one of the regulators.
Oh, praise granddad.
Was was executed by the government for his role in being a regulator.
Ooh, okay. Oh,
Regulators, in the immortal words of Warren G, regulators mount up.
boom.
So
Ladies and gentlemen, you guys are the best. We really appreciate you listening. Like, share, all that stuff. But
please,
more
man, come
important,
on, man. Come on, do that.
read the
Make
stuff.
it real. Make this stuff where it moves the needle, man. Make it move the needle. Send it. It doesn't take anything to copy, paste, send that stuff out through all your stuff. Let's get these stories out there. So it shouldn't be surprising. There should see a title about a podcast about Hortensia and people should roll their eyes like, oh, I've heard that story 1,000 times.
Right. This isn't the Mike and Joe show. This is the
No.
man. We love these stories about liberty, and we love these stories about the people that understood and fought, their way for liberty. We love them. We want to share them, and we want to propagate it. We want to be the evangelists of liberty.
Yeah, because it's not, we understand that if you're preaching, in the empire of lies, the truth is treason. We're not fixing to get rich off telling the truth. We're not the loyal opposition. We're not agent provocateur. We're just telling stories that don't get told anymore. Our traditional stories of men and women that stood up, gave their lives potentially for the protection of their liberty, for the protection of the liberty of their family, friends, kindred, and loved ones. And that's all we're doing. And we can really save this. We can really do it if you spread these stories around, get people to understand. If you yourself go and read the stories and determine to do just your little bit, just lift where you stand, right? Ain't no one telling you to be an arc steadier. Ain't no one telling you to do any of that. Just lift where you stand. Teach your children, teach your neighbor, share with your Facebook, Instagram, whatever friends. Get them to know these stories. Maybe they reject them, but the invitation is victory.
It is.
The invitation is success. Just say, hey, did you know this story? Do you know the background of this story? Do you know where you can read this story in Roman history? Come on.
Hey, and meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
If somebody is a feminist, you want to hear the greatest feminist story of all time. Let me tell you about Hortensia. If somebody is a January 6th person, you want to hear about what should have happened on January
The
6th.
original, yeah, you want to hear about the original J6?
Right. Let's so meet people where they're at.
Yeah,
But we
that's
love these
good counsel.
and man, and again, you guys are in for treats. We got more to come. Joy, I really appreciate you, brother. I really do.
Hey man, we're just doing the thing. We're just doing our little bit, you know?
Yep. All right. Thanks for listening to Return to Tradition. Return to Tradition. Ciao.